The discovery of the war machine world. The peaceful explorers arrive. Commander Zethera stood on the bridge of the starship Harmony's Voice, watching the blue and green planet grow larger on the viewing screen. After 300 years of peaceful exploration across the galaxy, the Corveni Empire had discovered many worlds with intelligent life. Most were simple societies that welcomed trade and friendship. This world, called Earth by its inhabitants, looked no different from the others. The Corvani had built their empire on cooperation and mutual benefit. They shared technology, art, and culture with every species they met. War was something from their ancient past, a dark chapter they had overcome through wisdom and understanding. Their ships carried scientists, diplomats, and teachers, not soldiers or weapons. "Commander," said Science Officer Veltar from her station, "the planet shows remarkable diversity. Multiple climate zones, vast oceans, and what appears to be a highly advanced civilization. Their cities shine with artificial light, and we're detecting thousands of satellites in orbit." Zethera nodded approvingly. Advanced civilizations usually meant peaceful ones. Species that had learned to work together could accomplish great things. "Any signs of conflict or warfare?" he asked, following standard exploration protocol. Veltar checked her instruments carefully. "Nothing obvious, Commander. No active weapons signatures, no military formations. Their orbital structures appear to be for communication, weather monitoring, and scientific research." "Excellent," Zethera replied. "Begin standard first contact procedures. Send our friendship message in mathematical sequences, then wait for their response." The Corvani had perfected first contact over centuries of practice. They always approached slowly, sent peaceful messages, and waited for the local species to respond. Force was never used, and weapons were never displayed. Every species they had met appreciated this gentle approach. Within hours, the humans responded. Their message was sophisticated, showing advanced mathematics and what appeared to be offers of cultural exchange. The translation came through clearly. "Welcome to our solar system. We greet you in peace and friendship." The diplomatic meeting. 2 days later, Zethera found himself in a gleaming facility the humans called the International Space Station. The humans had invited the Corvani delegation for formal first contact ceremonies. Everything seemed perfect and welcoming. The human leader was a woman named Director Sarah Chen, who represented something called the United Earth Government. She was friendly and intelligent, speaking about cooperation and mutual understanding. Other humans present included scientists, diplomats, and cultural representatives. "We are honored by your visit," Director Chen said as they walked through the station's corridors. "Earth has long wondered if we were alone in the universe. To meet such an advanced and peaceful civilization is a dream come true." Zethera felt pleased by the warm reception. "The Corveni Empire values friendship above all else. We have met 47 different species in our travels, and each has enriched our understanding of the universe." As they toured the facility, Zethera noticed something unusual. Many of the humans wore uniforms that looked similar to what the Corveni remembered from their ancient military histories. When he asked about this, Director Chen explained that they were service members who helped with security and logistics. "Security?" asked cultural specialist Nexium. "Are there threats in space we should know about?" Director Chen smiled reassuringly. "Oh, just standard precautions. Space can be dangerous with asteroids and equipment failures. We like to be prepared for any situation." This seemed reasonable, but Nexium made a note in his cultural analysis files. Most advanced species they had met relied on automated systems for such protection, not uniformed personnel. Strange observations begin. Over the following days, the Corveni delegation visited various human facilities on Earth. They saw magnificent cities, advanced laboratories, and impressive manufacturing centers. The humans were clearly intelligent and capable, but small details began to concern the alien visitors. At a university in North America, they observed human students engaged in something called competitive debate. The young humans argued passionately about complex topics, trying to defeat their opponents through superior logic and rhetoric. When Nexium asked about cooperative learning, the professors looked confused. "Competition brings out the best in our students," explained Professor Martinez. "They learn to think quickly, defend their positions, and overcome challenges. It prepares them for the real world." On Corvin, students learn through collaboration and shared discovery. The idea of education as preparation for conflict was foreign and slightly disturbing. At a manufacturing facility, production manager Jackson proudly showed them assembly lines that could rapidly retool for different production needs. When pressed for details, he explained that civilian factories could quickly switch to producing emergency equipment if needed. "What kind of emergencies require such rapid industrial changes?" Veltar asked innocently. Jackson hesitated, then said, "Well, natural disasters, supply chain disruptions, that sort of thing. You have to be ready for anything." But the specifications they glimpsed suggested the emergency equipment included vehicles and machinery with decidedly non-civilian applications. The children's games, perhaps most disturbing, was what they observed in human schools. Children as young as 6 years old played games that simulated conflict and competition. They divided into teams, created strategies to defeat opponents, and celebrated victories over their classmates. At a primary school, they watched children play something called Capture the Flag. The young humans divided into armies, planned attacks on enemy positions, and used tactics that reminded the Corvini of ancient warfare strategies. "This develops their strategic thinking and teamwork skills," explained Teacher Williams enthusiastically. "Children need to learn how to compete and win in life." Even more concerning were the toys in human stores. Miniature vehicles that looked suspiciously like weapons platforms, action figures carrying various armaments, and games that simulated battles and conquests. Human entertainment seemed focused on conflict and competition. On Corvin, our children play games of creation and cooperation, Nexium mentioned to Teacher Williams. They build things together and solve puzzles as teams. Teacher Williams looked surprised. "That sounds nice, but how do they learn to overcome challenges and defeat obstacles? Life isn't always cooperative, you know." The sports revelation. The humans invited their guests to observe something called sporting events. These were elaborate competitions where teams of humans engaged in physical contests while thousands of spectators watched and cheered. At a football stadium, Zethera watched in amazement as armored humans crashed into each other repeatedly, fighting for control of territory on a marked field. The crowd roared approval when their team advanced and groaned when they retreated. The parallels to ancient warfare were impossible to ignore. "This teaches discipline, strategy, and physical fitness," explained Sports Commissioner Roberts. "Our athletes are some of the finest physical specimens on the planet. They train constantly to perfect their skills." Other sports were equally revealing. Boxing involved humans striking each other until one could no longer continue. Wrestling was ritualized combat. Even seemingly peaceful sports like chess were described as battles of the mind, where players attacked and defended positions. "Do you have any cooperative sports?" asked Veltar hopefully. Commissioner Roberts thought for a moment. "Well, there are team sports where people work together, but the goal is still to defeat the other team. That's what makes it exciting. The competition, the struggle, the victory." Industrial capabilities. The final piece of the puzzle came during tours of human industrial facilities. What the humans presented as civilian manufacturing revealed capabilities that shocked the Corvini observers. At an aerospace facility, Engineer Thompson showed them production lines for civilian aircraft. But the same facilities, equipment, and workers could obviously produce military vehicles with minimal modifications. The humans had designed their entire industrial base with rapid conversion capabilities. Impressive efficiency, Zeth-Era commented carefully. "Your factories seem very adaptable." "Oh yes," Engineer Thompson replied proudly. During World War II, automobile factories switched to building tanks and aircraft almost overnight. We learned the value of flexible manufacturing. Today, any of our civilian industries can support national defense if needed. The casual mention of a world war sent chills through the Corvani delegation. They had encountered many species with histories of conflict, but few spoke so matter-of-factly about global warfare. At a computer technology center, they learned that most human advances in computing, communication, and space technology originated from military applications. The very network the humans used for communication had been designed to survive warfare. Military research drives a lot of our innovation, explained Chief Technology Officer Davis. Competition and necessity create the best solutions. Peaceful times are when we prepare for the next challenge. The growing realization. As their visit continued, the Corvani delegation began to understand that they had not discovered a peaceful civilization that happened to have some military capabilities. They had found something unprecedented in their 3 centuries of exploration, a species that had never truly known peace. Every aspect of human society, education, entertainment, industry, technology, even children's games, was designed around competition, conflict, and the assumption that challenges must be overcome through superior capability. Humans didn't prepare for war. They lived in a constant state of preparation that they considered normal life. That evening, in their quarters aboard Harmony's Voice, the Corvani delegation held an emergency conference. Commander, Nexium reported grimly, I have analyzed thousands of hours of human cultural broadcasts. 90% of their entertainment involves conflict, competition, or conquest. Their heroes are warriors, their legends celebrate battles, and their greatest achievements come from overcoming opponents. Veltar added her scientific observations. Their entire planet shows signs of constant resource competition. They have divided their world into competing territories, each maintaining separate industrial and technological capabilities. This is not a unified species. It's a collection of competing factions that happen to cooperate against outside threats. Zethera stared at the data displays, showing human society from a new perspective. Are you telling me that this entire civilization is essentially a military organization disguised as a peaceful society? Worse than that, Commander, Nexium replied quietly. They don't even realize what they are. To them, this constant preparation for conflict is normal. They think every intelligent species naturally develops this way. The implications were staggering. The Corvani had spent centuries building an empire based on peaceful cooperation. They had grown comfortable and complacent, assuming that all advanced species had learned the same lessons about the futility of warfare. But Earth had taught them something terrifying. Not all species chose peace when they reached the stars. Some species reached technological advancement through constant conflict, creating civilizations that were essentially war machines operating at a level of readiness that peaceful species couldn't imagine. As Zethera prepared his report for the Corvani High Council, he realized that first contact with humanity would change everything. The question was no longer whether humans could be trusted as friends, but whether the galaxy was prepared for what humanity represented, a species that had turned survival itself into an art of war. The war machine revelation and galactic consequences. The deep analysis begins. Commander Zethera stood in the analysis chamber of Harmony's Voice, surrounded by holographic displays showing the comprehensive data his team had gathered about human civilization. What they had discovered in the past week went far beyond their worst concerns about this species. Science Officer Veltar activated the main display, showing a timeline of human development spanning thousands of years. Commander, we have completed our historical analysis of Earth's civilization. The results are unprecedented in our 3 centuries of exploration. The hologram showed an unbroken chain of conflicts stretching back to humanity's earliest recorded history. Wars, battles, conquests, and competitions filled every era. With only brief intervals of relative peace, the humans used to prepare for the next conflict. In our entire database of 47 species, Veltar continued, we have never encountered a civilization that has been in continuous military development for its entire existence. The Corvani fought wars for 50 years before achieving peace. The Zelthans had conflicts for perhaps a century. Humans have been perfecting warfare for over 5,000 years. Zethera studied the data with growing alarm. Show me their technological development pattern. The display shifted to show human innovations throughout history. Every major advancement, from metallurgy to nuclear power, from computer systems to space travel, had originated from military necessity or been immediately adapted for military use. Their pattern is unlike anything we've recorded, explained technology analyst Corvex, who had joined the briefing. Most species develop technology for improving life, then sometimes adapt it for defense. Humans develop technology for warfare, then adapt it for civilian use. Their entire technological civilization is built on a foundation of military advancement. The Education System Investigation. Cultural specialist Nexium presented his findings about human education and social development. The results were deeply disturbing to minds accustomed to cooperative learning and peaceful development. Their educational system is designed to produce strategic thinkers and competitive individuals, Nexium reported. From the earliest ages, human children are taught to view life as a series of challenges to be overcome through superior capability. The holographic display showed human schools where children learned mathematics through competitive games, studied history by analyzing military campaigns, and developed physical fitness through combat-style training. Even subjects like literature and art were taught through competitive analysis and criticism. Look at this. Nexium highlighted a human institution called a military academy. They have specialized schools that train children from age 14 in warfare tactics, weapons technology, and strategic planning. Graduates become leaders in their society, not just in military roles, but in government, business, and technology. Zethera felt his understanding of peaceful civilization being challenged at its core. Are you saying their leaders are trained warriors? More than that, Commander. Their entire leadership class thinks like military strategists. Corporate executives plan market campaigns like battlefield operations. Political leaders speak of defeating opponents and conquering challenges. Scientists approach research like tactical problems to be solved through superior methodology. The implications were staggering. The Corvani had assumed that advanced civilizations naturally developed cooperative leadership based on wisdom and consensus. Earth showed them that a species could reach the stars while maintaining warrior-leader hierarchies that would have been familiar to ancient tribal societies. Industrial war machine assessment. The most shocking discoveries came from analyzing human industrial capabilities. What had initially appeared to be an impressive civilian economy revealed itself as something far more sophisticated and dangerous. Production specialist Cathan presented his analysis of Earth's manufacturing capacity. Commander, the human industrial system is designed for rapid military conversion on a scale we have never encountered. Their entire economy can switch from civilian to military production within days. The holographic display showed the intricate connections between seemingly peaceful factories and potential military applications. Automobile plants that could build armored vehicles, electronics manufacturers that could produce guidance systems, chemical companies that could synthesize explosives, and aerospace facilities that could construct warships. During their World War II conflict, Cathan continued, they demonstrated the ability to transform their entire civilization into a war machine within months. Civilian workers became weapons manufacturers, scientists became military researchers, and their entire population became focused on industrial warfare production. Zethera realized they weren't looking at a civilization that could defend itself if threatened. They were studying a species that had unknowingly designed their entire society as a war machine that could be activated at any moment. What about their space capabilities? Zethera asked, dreading the answer. Their space program was originally developed to deliver weapons across continents, Cathan replied grimly. Every component of their space technology has military applications. Their satellites can be used for reconnaissance and communication warfare. Their space stations could serve as military platforms. Their rocket technology was literally designed as weapons delivery systems. The children's war training. Perhaps most disturbing was the detailed analysis of how humans raised their young. Child development analyst Will Sarah had spent days studying human child-rearing practices and had reached conclusions that shook the Corvini understanding of civilized development. Commander, human children receive military-style training from birth, but they don't recognize it as such, Will Sarah reported. Their games, sports, entertainment, and even toys are designed to develop strategic thinking, physical combat capability, and competitive psychology. The display showed human children playing elaborate games of conquest and strategy, board games where players built armies and conquered territories, video games where they commanded fleets and planned battles, sports where they learned teamwork through organized conflict against opponents. Their toy industry produces miniature weapons, military vehicles, and action figures equipped for combat. Parents purchase these items as gifts, seeing them as normal child development tools rather than military training equipment. Zethera watched footage of human children, as young as 6 years old, demonstrating tactical awareness, strategic planning, and competitive drive that exceeded the capabilities of adult Corvini civilians. Are you telling me that human children receive better military training than our professional defense forces? Yilsera nodded grimly. Their children's games teach reconnaissance, resource management, tactical planning, team coordination, and competitive psychology. By adulthood, every human has been unconsciously trained in warfare fundamentals for their entire life. The entertainment war culture. Media analyst Zorketh presented findings about human entertainment that revealed the depth of their militaristic culture. Commander, human entertainment is essentially military training disguised as leisure activity. The analysis showed that human movies, books, games, and other media overwhelmingly focused on conflict, competition, and conquest. Their heroes were warriors, their plots involved overcoming enemies, and their most popular stories celebrated military virtues like courage, sacrifice, and victory. Even their love stories typically involve some form of conflict or competition. Zorketh continued. Their literature celebrates individuals who overcome obstacles through superior capability. Their music includes battle hymns, competitive anthems, and songs that glorify struggle and triumph. Most concerning was the realization that humans consumed this military-themed entertainment for pleasure. They found stories about warfare and competition enjoyable and inspiring, suggesting a psychological orientation toward conflict that the peaceful Corvini found difficult to comprehend. Do they have any entertainment that promotes cooperation and peace? Zethera asked hopefully. Zorketh checked his data files. Less than 10% of their entertainment promotes purely cooperative themes, and even those often involve teams working together to overcome opponents or obstacles. Their concept of cooperation is typically about joining forces to defeat someone else. The historical war pattern. Historian Velmera had researched human history in unprecedented detail, and her findings revealed patterns that suggested humanity's militaristic nature was not a phase they might outgrow, but a fundamental characteristic of their species' development. Commander, humans have never experienced true peace in their recorded history, Velmera reported. What they call peacetime is actually periods of preparation for the next conflict. During these supposedly peaceful eras, they continued military research, weapons development, and strategic planning. The historical analysis showed that humans used peaceful periods to develop new technologies, train better soldiers, and build stronger economies specifically to be more effective in future conflicts. Their peace was not the absence of war, but the presence of war preparation. Look at their current situation, Velmera continued. They have achieved global cooperation for the first time in their history, but notice how they accomplished this. They didn't overcome their competitive nature. They redirected it towards space exploration, technological development, and preparing for potential threats from beyond their world. Zethera realized with growing horror that humanity's apparent peaceful cooperation was actually them organizing for potential warfare against external threats. First contact with the Corvani hadn't introduced them to peaceful galactic civilization. It had given them a potential opponent to prepare for. The Galactic Threat Assessment. Intelligence Coordinator Nexvar presented the final analysis that would determine the Corvani Empire's response to humanity. The conclusions were more serious than anyone had anticipated. Commander, we must face the possibility that humanity represents an existential threat to galactic peace, Nexvar stated bluntly. Not because they are inherently evil, but because their entire civilization is designed for expansion through superior capability. The threat assessment was comprehensive and terrifying. Humans had achieved technological advancement through constant competition and conflict. Their industrial base could support massive military expansion. Their population was trained from birth in strategic thinking and competitive psychology. Their culture celebrated conquest and competition as natural and desirable. Most critically, Nexvar continued, they assume that all intelligent species think like they do. They expect conflict and prepare for it automatically. When they meet other species, they immediately begin assessing military capabilities, strategic advantages, and potential threats. The Corvani had built their empire on the assumption that advanced species naturally chose cooperation over conflict. Their military was minimal, their defenses were outdated, and their industrial capacity was focused entirely on peaceful production. Against a species like humanity, they would be completely helpless. What are our options? Zethira asked, though he feared he already knew the answer. We can attempt to maintain peaceful relations and hope they choose cooperation, Nexvar replied. We can withdraw from contact and hope they don't follow us. Or we can warn the other species in our empire and begin preparing for the possibility that humanity will eventually expand beyond their solar system. The impossible decision. That night, Zethira sat alone in his command chamber, staring at the blue and green world that had shattered everything he believed about galactic civilization. The humans sleeping peacefully on that planet had no idea that their very existence challenged the foundation of peaceful interstellar society. They weren't evil or malicious. In their own way, they were admirable, innovative, determined, and capable of remarkable achievements. But they were also the product of an evolutionary path that had produced a species fundamentally oriented toward competition and conflict. The Corvani Empire faced an unprecedented decision. They could try to integrate humanity into galactic civilization and hope that exposure to peaceful species would gradually change human nature. They could attempt to isolate Earth and prevent human expansion into space. Or they could begin preparing the galaxy for the arrival of a species that might inadvertently trigger conflicts that hadn't existed for centuries. As Zethira prepared his final report to the High Council, he realized that first contact with humanity had changed everything. The galaxy had been peaceful because it contained only species that had chosen peace when they reached the stars. But now they had discovered a species that had reached the stars without ever truly choosing peace. A species that had turned the very act of survival into an art of perpetual warfare. The question was no longer whether humanity could be trusted. The question was whether galactic civilization could survive contact with a species that didn't even realize it was a war machine disguised as a peaceful society. Outside his window, Earth continued its slow rotation, beautiful and serene. Home to billions of beings who had unknowingly created the most effective military civilization the galaxy had ever seen. Tomorrow, Zethira would send his report and recommendations, and the peaceful galaxy would begin preparing for changes that none of them could fully imagine. The age of easy peace was ending, and the age of competitive coexistence was about to begin.